All right, here we go again. Woke up alive. Woke up alive again. We get up at 5 o'clock every morning here. Excuse me. And this past couple weeks, man, I'll tell you what. Been challenging. Sarah's got her surgery this Friday now, apparently. So that's what we have to do. Get up real early and head in to get her blood work done, etc., and get in line. She delivered all of the food to all those families yesterday. What else? That's a super cool thing, actually. And then, what else? What else is going on in the world today? I guess Obama's trying to get into his 4th term in a row right now, isn't he? Had to say that. Hold on a minute. Sounds like the dog's destroying my man cave. What else is going on the planet? Canadian government is now about to make some rules go in place that if you talk badly online, you could possibly do life in prison. That's a fact. That's here in Canada-stan. Capital K, Canada-stan. Isn't that amazing? It's amazing what's going down. I don't know what country to move to. I haven't a clue. Seriously. Haven't a clue what country. If it wasn't for the beautiful mountains that I grew up in, I would probably be living in the States quite a while ago, actually. Too many friends in the States, a lot of fun down there. But I don't know where I would go now. Where we would go. We were discussing it last night. What to do. What to do. It's very, very frustrating. You've got such a little leprechaun who's never, ever even experienced hardship ever in his life. Hammering on the people and being a criminal and not... It's just slowly squeezing the shit out of people here in Canada. That's not talking politics. That's talking my quality of life and other people's quality of life, which is non-stop spiraling. Anybody out there that gets upset because they think that's talking politics, you can ram it right up your ass and walk out the back door. Walk out the door you came in. It's because of people putting their head in the sand that so many children are hungry, right? That's why. It's the only reason why. People not wanting to look and discuss and see the truth. Anyway, I'll bite my lip for now. But I'm getting really frustrated right now with life here in capital K, Canada-stan. Understandably, right? What to do? What to do? We'll see what's coming down the pipe. Now, let's hear some voices, shall we? This is titled Us and Them. I, Steve, wrote to you before on this subject. And now, without the baggage of trauma, I can set up my story in a more cogent style. Quote, "So who are you going to believe, me or your own eyes?" End quote, Groucho Marx. That was a quote that made some impact on me when I first heard it. You may know where I'm going with the story from that quote. The first time I went hunting with my father and my brother, I had to ask my brother what age we were. I was around 4 or 5 years old. I was around 4 or 5 years of age, far too young to be going hunting. Said who? For a long time, I thought Dad was teaching me a life lesson, but now I realize he wasn't teaching me a life lesson. I was there because I was the spotter. He wore glasses, and my brother needed glasses, but was too proud to wear them. He must have noticed at that age that I had very good vision. But what he had forgotten was I was an animal lover, and there was no way I was going to help him blast some innocent creature to kingdom come. I was too young to realize that those tasty stews that we enjoyed at tea time came from this very pursuit. A few times as we walked along in a line, I saw something in the distance and would carefully stand on a dry twig to make it run away. I think that Dad must have realized eventually that I was never going to be helpful in the hunt. It may have been this lack of success that encouraged my father to sit me down and talk about improving my eyesight and my senses in general. I'm not sure what the reasons were, but I knew from that day forward I did improve my eyesight. And at that tender age, instead of walking along looking 3 feet ahead of me, I started to look 10 feet ahead of me, and then 20 feet, and then 50 yards, and then 100 yards, and then 200 yards, 300, 400, 500, and a whole new world opened up in front of me. I became a serious nature spotter, mainly birds, but also mammals. I would rush to the library to find, to find a book about an animal that I'd seen or a bird. I don't know what the librarian must have thought when I started looking for books about teddy bears. This wasn't a normal animal. This was an animal that didn't want to be found, and I had somehow crossed a barrier. Once crossed, it was impossible to go back. From that day forward, I tried to warn people to stay out of certain areas without success. No one believes me. Occasionally, I find someone who I can speak to. I can't go into the details or the encounters. What I want to say is that when somebody tells you they've seen one of these things, just believe them. They don't encourage ridicule without good reason. Just believe them and stay out of that area. Keep your children out of that area. And your adults, stay away from the area. I've had a lifetime of ridicule because I know where it comes from. I understand that many people don't see them, can't see them, or can't process what they've seen. I get that. It took me many, many years to understand what I have seen and encountered. So I understand when people say there's no such thing. They don't exist. And it's impossible to try and persuade them they do exist, but that's the way it is. So that's my message. If somebody tells you they've seen something covered in hair and large or even small, just believe them. Why would they say it if they were not trying to protect people around them? We've come full circle to Groucho, or should I explain how as a child I even started to believe my family and peers that I was not seeing what I was seeing until one day. I was walking ahead of my friends to try to get a view of a field where we played ahead 450 meters, and as my head came over the brow, I saw something move. It looked like a shadow moving across the field and enter the river. When I got to the point where I saw it enter the river, down the bank slightly under the overhang of a small patch of sand, and in that sand was a footprint. And that was my passport to believe what I was seeing. It was the first evidence that told me I wasn't having hallucination and they were real. Rest in peace, Groucho. There you go. All right. Appreciate it. We got the message. That's for sure. Got that message. What do we got here? This is titled Couple Pieces of the Puzzle. Steve, as I write, I'm not sure I'll send this. If you're reading it, then obviously I decided to send it. Sometime I get these compulsions to get something off my mind, and this is one of those moments. I have some key parts to the puzzle we are all working on. Alert. It has some religious aspect. I get it that among Christianity there is a slew of fruitcakes, and you've had your share of them. Some. You've had your share and then some. Realize that when a person becomes a Christian, he rarely sheds their mental fruitcake aberrations. They just become a religious fruitcake. I've met them, know them, represented them, I'm a lawyer, and tried for the most part to avoid them. Sometimes it's impossible. All that to say this. My pieces of the puzzle come from ruthless study, which allows me to look under any rock and follow any trail, however faint it might be. It allows me to listen to people like yourself and your round table of folks willing to be honest about what they saw and experienced. Are some stories bogus? Probably. So what? Some cops are bad. Some lawyers are bad. I've met a few of both. Doesn't mean all cops and lawyers are bad. Most of the stories I've heard on your channel are legit, in my opinion. I agree. Enough rambling. Puzzle piece number 1. Where do these beings come from? Got to give a shorthand answer here since the full answer would take the rest of your show. They are a result of genetic experiments done thousands of years ago. There exists some ancient writings that actually discuss these experiments. These ancient scripts even discuss, among other things, the creation of the mule. I was unaware of these ancient writings until recently. They were a part of the thousands of documents discovered near the Dead Sea called the Dead Sea Scrolls. These documents are not just old pieces of the Hebrew Bible. They included documents whose information was passed along for thousands of years. When you read some of this stuff, you come away wondering if maybe the ancient Greek gods were not in fact real and not myths. Ironically, it was the results of these experiments that brought about the worst disaster ever to befall the occupants of Earth. That was the worldwide flood. God saw the almost total degeneration of his creation, to wit, humanity. God saw the alteration of human DNA, excepting for a small handful. So, he loaded Noah, his wife, and 3 sons and their wives, along with some animal specimens, into a pretty big boat and set them afloat. Sounds weird, but if you really do a deep dive, it becomes more understandable as to why the flood was, from God's perspective, an absolute necessity. Puzzle piece number 2. What's the government's role in all of this? Mixed bag here. Different governments have different perspectives, goals, and aims. The U.S. government is a massive interagency confusion and competitions, and the proverb, quote, the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing, end quote, fits. Excuse me. They've compartmentalized themselves into unbreakable walls of secrecy. In essence, they've even hidden some vital truths from themselves by not sharing. Hard to put a puzzle together when a dozen other people are holding key pieces of that puzzle. But I am about 95% convinced that there is, within those in the know, levels that has all the pieces of the puzzle. The problem is, they are as dark and black as the heart of Satan, and good luck ever penetrating that. These people are untouchable and are truly above the law. They are the ones with bases below the earth whose tunnels connect with official U.S. government underground facilities to which they have unlimited access due to compromised high-level humans within our military and intelligence alphabet agencies. Well enough. I have other pieces, but this is already turning into a book, and you've another 1,000 emails to read. You've got the instincts of a true hunter, and you're a bit like the old hound dogs who, once they got the scent, don't stop until they find what made them salivate. Stay on the hunt, man. You can use my name or not. It isn't important to me. The message is important. Voyle Glover. Voyle, you got more pieces? Send them. Send your pieces, man. All right? Send your pieces. You're right. I am a hunter, and I don't quit. It's a deadly combination, right? It's a deadly combination for some things. Yeah, I don't know. It's bizarre. Everything's very bizarre. Saddened in a way at times, especially when a message I had from a man previous, a very intelligent man, who chose to remain anonymous, when he said flat out, the word on the street was directly, the government does not care about anything except for control of the labor to appease the entity. Right? I've shared that before. And that statement he received, he said to me, troubled him for many years. Still does today. And then he passed it on to me. And then every time I look at how insane a lot of things are that are going on today, it fits, right? But it's funny, though. If you try to figure out who, it's really a weird thing. In the end, who would be at the top of the pyramid that would benefit from all of our labor on this small place we all live? You know, if you go out and You go in space, chunk of dust floating off. You go in space and look back at, from what we assume is space, looking back at the Earth, and it's just dead silent. And you see that beautiful blue color of the ocean, the atmosphere, and the clouds, and the mountains, and the green. And you look at it, it looks so peaceful and beautiful down there from above. And then you go down there and you see the absolute chaos that's going down, and the control of life, quality of life. And you just start wondering, I just start wondering why. Like, come on, what's going on, man? Did all you people not go out picnicking and camping with your family and fishing or whatever enough or something? I didn't understand. I get it. Especially here in Canada, Stan, all they do is just try to make you work harder and work harder and work harder and work harder and longer and harder and longer. And then they tax you more. They take more and more and more of your money. We got to get more. We got to get more. Where the fuck's it all going? What's making such a small amount of people just constantly push the population to waste the majority of their lives while reaping the benefits from that time they wasted off of their backs, right? It's a confusing mystery. Like, I'm trying to picture me. I mean, God, we finally figured a way to get a few extra bucks off this channel, and our minds went straight to helping people in the community. I can't imagine if I was at the top of the pyramid and I had control of all those billions of fucking dollars, what I would do with that. I guarantee you I would ship it overseas to help people bomb the fuck out of each other. Right? Anyway, it's just very confusing to watch this ride and try to figure it out. But in the meantime, that little seed's planted in my head. The government does not care about anything. Anything. Not the environment, not the health, not whether or not the grocery stores are feeding you and your children poison or not. They don't care. Just control of the labor to appease the entity. Who the F is the entity, and how do you lop their head right off their frickin' body, right? Anyway, sorry for that little rant. Then again, maybe I'm not. Those people we don't need. We do not need to hear anything from anybody who calls themselves the government when it comes to this topic and or any topic. They need us. Without us, those dark sons of bitches perish. It's just too bad all of us didn't understand that message absolutely clearly and then just shut her down. Let's get shut her down. But anyway, getting back to this topic, I'm just saying, when somebody brings up the topic of the government, F them, right? We do not need anything from them. They can't tell us anything. They can't. Even if they were to come up with some kind of an explanation for what's going on with millions of us when it comes to the real world and the forests and the mountains and the rivers, and getting the shit scared the F out of us by something that is so immense and significant. Oh, no, it doesn't exist. Even if the so-called government did come up with an explanation, what are you going to, really? You're going to listen to those sons of bitches and take them seriously? Come on. No. All we have is each other. That's it. We only have each other, and that is it. When it comes to figuring out the true shit shows going on out here. And this topic right here is one of the easiest ones to show and prove that it's a complete misleading shit show going on around us in so-called society. All right, enough of that. Enough of me babbling, but it's true, right? Prove me wrong. Now let's get back to each other and listening to each other. And this is how we learn. This is the only way you get truth, is listening to each other. Babbling this morning. Here we go. This is titled Forest People. Hi, Steve. The scientific classification of the Sasquatch, according to the WWW, is Kingdom Animalia. Phylum Chordata. Class Mammalia. Order Primates. Family Hominidae. Genus Deinanthropoids. Deinanthropoids. Human, genus Homo. Species, Magnipus. Excuse me, human. Species, Sapien. Deinanthropoids is the description of a large humanoid. Magnipus is generally omnivorous, hence relying on leaves, roots, berries, and fish. The only difference to the human classification is genus Homo and species Sapiens. The rest is the same. The work to get the Sabe acknowledged was started a long time ago. I assume it ended when they had to get one into a laboratory. Now, who can declare a new species? Once held in laboratory conditions, a taxonomist can begin the process of determining whether a species is new to science or not. This is a careful procedure that is often the longest part of the species description process and typically the most difficult. Steve, we just have to find one and ask him to go to his taxonomist in his laboratory. How difficult can it be? By the way, my name is Peter, and calling from Sweden. The founder of the scientific classification system is the known botanist Carl von Linz. Carl von Linn, also from Sweden. All right, there you go. Thanks, Peter. Hope all is well in Sweden. Interesting words. Personally, me, zero concern. That's just me, though. That's just me. I do not need any scientific group to tell me what's up with shit. At this stage of the game, not a chance. Not a chance. I just need all of the people here to show me the truth. That's it. And we're getting it, obviously. Right? We're getting it. We're getting closer. Much, much closer, right? But it just opens up so many more frickin' lanes. Here's another one titled St. Helen, Michigan. Hello, good sir. I recently heard a story on your channel from someone near St. Helen. I figured I may as well share my account with you all. Yes, you should. Firstly, I came in contact with a good man named Phil Shaw years after my experience, God rest his soul. He invested a lot of time and resources studying these beings in this area. This all happened some years ago, mid-2000s. My grandfather-in-law had passed away by this time. This was his cabin. He was an excellent marksman. Only after this experience did the family tell me that he never went into this part of the woods alone. It was whitetail rifle season. The spot I was going to wasn't terribly far from the cabin. The terrain is super dense brush and cedar swamp with areas of less dense forest. There's a clear trail that leads to an old blind in a low clearing with a few good firing lanes. I left the cabin hours before sunrise, excited for a relaxing day in the woods. And there's no wind, no noise. I was doing my best to be silent while getting out to the blind. I was about halfway to the spot when it hit me, like a Mack truck. I was slammed with a fear unlike any other. Mind you, I'm no stranger to the woods and its noises. I don't just get spooked out there. I was heavily armed, more than enough for anything from Michigan. I didn't hear a thing. I didn't see anything. But this fear just took me over to my core. I was frozen. I had my rifle in ready, but there was nothing in sight. I knew something was watching me. The feeling covered me like a lead blanket. I started saying the Lord's Prayer and finally got my feet moving again. I pushed onto the blind. The feeling of being watched never fading. I get settled in and listen. Just nothing there. I could sense where I was being watched from by this point, between myself and the cabin, about 30 yards behind me. Eventually the sun comes up. I was glad for that. And shortly after dawn, I hear a huge crashing through the woods where I knew this thing was. I came in before dark that day. Years later, someone else hunting the property said they saw massive, naked footprints in the snow. I never told them my story, and they're not the kind of person that would make this up. I can't say for certain what that was, but it was unlike anything I had encountered from endless hours in the woods. Unfortunately, it wouldn't be the only time I've been stalked outdoors. Thanks for what you're doing, John. Appreciate you sending that in, John. We've had a lot of experienced people. A lot of people have been in the woods all their life and never knew shit, didn't accept shit about this topic, didn't have any curiosity, and then this happens. That, you know, I can't, I try to imagine the fear that's being described from all of you. Excuse me. When that thing was on that rock watching me intentionally, I didn't have what is described here. The fear being described here, this scenario, which has been described how many times now? I didn't have that. I always felt creeped out. I can describe what I felt going through that pass on the top of the hill. Every time through that dark pass, I felt creepy, like, Jesus, oh my God. Ugh. I dreaded going through there. It just was all the hair on my body standing on end right now. Remembering, picture going through there. I'm getting the shivers right now. Excuse me, that's how intense that shiver was. But it wasn't dread, a wall of fear, paralyzing fear. I've never experienced that. Excuse me. I had to get hay yesterday and load the hay barn. I'm full of crud. Excuse me. So anyway, but when I went down that trail, I could feel, like, could I still feel it? I don't know, because it happened every single time I went over top of that mountain. So I can't remember if I still had the pressure feeling once I got through the pass, started to go back downhill, if I had that pressure or not. But when that person ducked back behind the rock, then it was adrenaline. It wasn't dreaded fear, it was adrenaline. I felt absolutely threatened, and this being's above and in the pitch black. When I look forward into the bushes, pitch black, dark blue sky. Then I felt absolutely vulnerable. Adrenaline off the chart. Excuse me, I remember breathing like that because I was trying to be as quiet as I could so I could hear. It was dead quiet. It was dead quiet. Excuse me, but I was trying to make sure that I could hear anything. I wanted to hear if this person was booking it up ahead of me so they could jump me again farther along the trail, or try to jump me, or try to get me. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. I was just a kid. But I had that razor sharp arrow, broadhead on my arrow, on my bow, and I kept that arrow pointed to that side of the road, and I was sidestepped forever, facing the side of the road the threat was on. Excuse me, but what I'm getting at is I never felt that wall of fear, and I don't think I want. Well, I shouldn't say this out loud because, just like the ladies say, your words have power. But would I be curious to feel this experience? I think so. I think I would. Doesn't sound like it's much fun, but I'm trying to think of other times when I was absolutely freaking terrified. And one of my first answers to that, because I've had a lot of people say, "What are you scared of, man? Like, what scared the shit out of you?" Is when, when that thing was blasting that tree, it scared the shit out of me. And way up the Powder Valley. But full terror I've had was when I was a kid on a commercial fishing boat way offshore. And you just can't describe how big the waves are to people. And you can't catch it on a camera. It doesn't. You just could never do it. But I remember being absolutely certain there's no way I'm living through this. There's no way. On this commercial fishing boat, these waves going right over the top of the frickin' boat, and all you see is a wall of green in the whole windshield of the cabin, and you're holding onto the kitchen sink, and your feet are coming off of the ground as it plows back down over the top, and you can't even see shore, you can't see another boat, and you're just a kid, and you don't understand much about what a vessel can put up with, but it's quite a bit. But that's one of the moments where I can relate to being in terror. And then one time I was going after the biggest grizzly bear I've ever seen, and the man had wounded it. And I was looking for it. And I had a sawed-off shotgun, and it was minus 10 or 15, and my shotgun had frozen up and wasn't working. And everything was just adding up to absolute hell on earth. And I had this absolute feeling of dread then, as I just thought, everything's wrong, everything's wrong, everything's wrong, everything's really, really bad, everything's wrong, this is really, really bad. So I'm crawling through thick bushes, and this sucker's and he's in those bushes waiting for me, right? And that was a time where I felt, that was a lot of dread. That was definitely a day of I felt dread. But what I'm getting at, I've never felt this wall of fear that people are explaining here. It sounds very, very intense. Very intense. Intense enough that people pack it for the rest of their lives. And then they also email it into here to share it with all of us. That's pretty intense, because I've never felt the urge to email my experience of going after the biggest grizzly wounded bear I've ever in my life. I don't need to get that off my chest, right? I don't need to get the terror off my chest that I experienced commercial fishing as a teenager. I don't need to go somewhere to get that off my chest. I hope I'm making sense. I'm just trying to explain and picture the significance of this example of absolute dread, fear, and terror. Seasoned, lifelong outdoor people are all of a sudden getting slapped in the face with like a sledgehammer. It's a pattern. It's confusing, and it's alarming. And at this stage of the game, it's almost like, all right, is this our feelings, or is this the feeling potentially? Is this the feeling of these beings being imposed on us? Now, when this happens, picture this potential maybe. Excuse me, maybe. Let's just say that the feeling, this dread, this terror, this being imposed on innocent human beings who are just cruising along down the forest trail. Is it possible, if whoever this person is this the first time they've ever ran into a human being? And that's their honest reaction inside, and it's being imposed on that human being. Is that a possibility? Picking up what I'm putting down? Is when this happens, the being that is throwing down that absolute feeling of terror, is it their own feeling, and is it being generated from seeing a human being for the first time ever? Is that a possibility? All right, gotta look at it all different angles. Now, who's next? This is titled, Wow. Excuse me. I kind of feel like I better start out with my most important point, as you do seem to be making choices over what you will read out loud. Here we go. So many people are trying to bring to light a verse of the Bible. It is in the book of Revelation about the end times. It is when the pale horse rides and loses death, so that 1/4 of the population of the whole earth will die. One of the things that the pale horse loses is, quote, the beasts of the field, end quote. I don't think these are your average farm animals. Other verses call them abominations, or varian. They are not created by God. But you know what? The DNA does not have the male donor. Angel DNA is not in any earthly compilation DNA. Right now, Steve, these abominations are mostly held back from the murderous rage against mankind by the restrainer. However, what the Bible identifies as the restrainer is probably either the Holy Spirit or the church. People who know their Bible are trying to warn others that the answer is Jesus, and to call on his name in order to avoid this particular curse, as well as those that are taking people in their sleep in national parks and forests. As well as those that are taking people in their sleep or in national parks and forests. This is just a really important point for people to know. Every time you encourage people to talk to the beasts that generally dominate you, Every time you encourage people to talk to the beasts that generally dominate your channel, telling them to just leave you alone, and so far it has worked for you. Well, at some point it won't. It's not you I'm worried about, but the people you influence. Please do not say that you do not want to try to influence people to do anything that you do. You definitely do. Quote, don't let them change your way of life. Keep doing what you love, end quote. Quote, I hope you will go back out there and hunt or hike and camp, end quote. In general, I do not blame you for giving advice, nor do I judge you for trying to help people. But, Steve, I do call you out. Quote, who's the guilty party? It's always the person who doesn't let you speak, end quote. You cut off the puzzle of a Bible thumper, saying you get one of those letters daily. You tell the audience that you have had 50,000 of those letters. Do the math, Steve. That's impossible. If you read 4 or 5 stories in a good day, 365 days a year, that is 1,825 accounts per year. You would have to be getting almost 80 Bible thumper emails a day. Even if you get a Bible-believing letter daily, how is it that any less of a puzzle with a person who sees patterns than the story of a person who comes upon a Sabe, and both human and Sabe are surprised and run away? Yet those people's experiences are not counseled. I have experienced minds speak. I have gone years terrified. I had lost my mind in fear, and then afraid to share my experiences, thinking that other people would judge me crazy. I've truly suffered all alone for years. I found the answer before I found your channel 4 years ago, and my puzzle is pretty much complete. Although my personal answers came 30 years ago, thank God. You recently said that it probably would not be too long before you were willing to share your puzzle, as it has pretty much come together at this point. You specifically mentioned that you wondered how many how-to-hunt people would be ready to share their puzzles soon also. I have a feeling that the puzzle that not only fits the Bible, fits the Sabe situation, but everything else that is going on in the world, including inflation, disarming the public, or getting rid of our ammunition, plagues, vax, starvation, violence, slavery, people in power, probably a worldwide group of dark people in power. These and the rest that are explained in the Bible, hundreds and thousands of years ago, may not be welcome puzzles on this channel. People want to know how God's creation can turn on his people, and how is that okay? That's not what is happening. These aren't God's creation. This is going to get so much worse before the end. However, unbelievers and people everywhere will either willingly or ignorantly silence the people who just may be the people who have the answer. Remember, it's the people who do not let you speak on whatever platform they control who are guilty. They may not really be an evil person, but they have an issue with the one book that so many of us see has the answers. Sherry Jacobs, Alaska. Sherry, listen to me. I'm going to say this one more time. I'm not going to address this again because it's getting frickin' frustrating, all right? Now listen up. We're listening to people walking in the forest with their family, their friends, whatever, having an absolute terrifying experience with an 8 to 10 foot tall, hairy, human-like being, right? I'm a professional outdoors person. My life is in the real world, in the outdoors. It has nothing to do with my religious beliefs at all. I am concerned, first and foremost, for my fellow human being in my community that does not have the fair crack at whether or not they are or aren't going to possibly put their family at risk of being absolutely having their life absolutely turned upside down by standing there looking at something 10 feet tall, 900 pounds, growling or screaming at them. Okay? We have had hundreds of people email in the answers in the Bible. Okay, I gotcha. I've shared that hundreds of times in this channel. I've shared it. Everybody has the choice to look into that or not. Take from it what they will or not. Okay? And I keep getting that same message daily. The same one. It gets frustrating. Okay, I got it. I got the message. Take from what you will or not. Shared. I am not stopping people from speaking. Got it? How about if I read the same page from the Quran starting today? Somebody sends me the same page from the Quran. Okay? They don't offer up a personal experience with a 10-foot tall, hairy, human-like being in the woods ever in their whole email, but they send me a page of the Quran for me to read out loud to you guys. Whether or not I read the Quran or not has nothing to do with me reading that out. It's just the fact somebody reads it. Okay, well, somebody just sent me the same page from the Quran about the 500th time. I guess I better read it, or I'm going to be accused of stopping people from speaking or choosing what people are saying. No, that's bullshit. Okay? Repeat of something that's maybe related. It may be. I'm definitely leaning towards a religious answer for a lot of shit. Spiritual. I should say spiritual. Without a doubt. That's just me and my puzzle. Now listen, I can't be more clear about this. If anybody out there has had some kind of experience, one of these effing things running around the forest, I want to hear about it. I want to hear what you saw, heard, felt, and learned. All right? And when I collect that information from you and share it with all the people out here, then every single person can start putting their puzzle piece together. That's what we're doing, and that's what we have been doing, and that's why this channel gets millions and millions of views. If somebody's going to send me the same page from the Quran 25 times a week, when do I draw the line? When do I draw the line? Oh, no, Steve, you just got the same page from the Quran again. Oh, look ahead. Uh-oh. There's nothing in there mentioning Sasquatch or somebody seeing one or having their life turns upside down. You better read this page or you're going to get shit on online. There we go. That's the last time I address that topic. Appreciate you sending that in. Moving along. Who's next? Now, this is titled The Summer of Sasquatch. Hello, Steve. I'm sharing a portion of our story about my family's introduction to another family, a family of Sasquatch. This isn't a story of fear, but of fascination, and some truly amazing experiences. We live in a rural area of western Washington state. The forest around us extends for miles, with a few houses interspersed. We do forest land management on our property, and working in the woods is what we would do along with farming. Our 5 children were raised by us to play and work in the forest as well. They would roam the woods, discovering new trails, watching and collecting wildlife, and fishing in the secret lake that only they got to fish in. There were times when we felt as if we were being watched, but just chalked it up to the abundant wildlife or brush pickers who routinely trespass to harvest our salal and huck, which is used all over the world by florists. I had some friends in Vancouver Island that harvested shallal and made pretty good money at it. But over time, our children began to tell a different story about their forays in the woods. It started with my son and his friend as 9-year-olds. They would go behind our pond to explore the deeper, darker woods. They were planning to make a camp for the Boy Scout buddies and were always looking for the perfect tent and cabin spot. They came back one afternoon and were a bit shaken. Both told how the woods became silent and still, and that the air around them became shimmery and wavy with an electric field. They backed out of the area and scrambled home. I blew them off and said to plan a clubhouse closer to home. In that week of early summer, another incident happened that began to show us all something was going on out in our woods. One of our daughters was very sensitive and sweet. All animals loved her and gravitated towards her. She had pet wildlife and assorted farm pets who were devoted to her. One morning she got up and told me of a concern she had. She said she wasn't sure if she was dreaming, but that a very large ape person was coming up by the sliding glass door of her bedroom to eat the bird seed she put out for the birds. The bird feeder was about 7 feet off the ground, hanging from our deck above her basement walkout bedroom. I suggested that maybe she was half asleep and that it was deer standing on the hind legs trying to get the seeds or leaves of the kiwi vines. She said, quote, "Mom, he had to duck under the deck to get the seeds," end quote. And yes, the seeds were gone. The morning of the next day, the same thing. Quote, "Mom, he just stared into my room at me and I couldn't move, but I didn't feel afraid. He's super cool with silvery back in the moonlight." End quote. I asked her what her dog did. Her devoted dog slept in the summer outside her door. Quote, "Oh, she just stares at him. I don't think she can move." End quote. This went on for several nights, and I urged her to not make a big deal about it, to get her younger siblings, as we tried to find a rational reason for this occurrence. Was it half-sleep dreaming? Was it something she couldn't see clearly in the dark, despite my urging a low-key approach to figuring out what was happening? Those younger siblings soon had an experience that showed us exactly what was going on. One night after dark, my son was in the room adjacent to my daughter's bedroom. He was playing with my daughter's best friend, and when they looked up at the window, a face was looking back at them. It was a Sasquatch, but a clearly young one. They were shocked and yelled, and the Sasquatch also appeared shocked and yelled. My son and the friend ran upstairs yelling about seeing a Sasquatch, but were very clear it was a kid Sasquatch because of the size. That's a weird statement, isn't it? My children were curious and took the time to look out the window after the Sasquatch left, and they saw its shape, and it was clearly a smaller size. They also saw a larger shape by it closer to the woods beyond the side lawn. I was just going to say, well, how would they know it was a smaller size? They need something to compare it to beforehand, right? Not just now when they also saw a larger shape by it closer to the woods beyond the side lawn. So that's the first time mention of a larger shape. What made them say it's a smaller shape? Well, what was the bigger shape before is what I'm curious about. So now Sasquatch became a thing with our family. It was as if a floodgate of annoying Sasquatchery began to plague us. My kids decided to try and get proof of them and capitalize on the evidence. They carried buckets of sand to spread around the areas of the house where they seemed to appear regularly, hoping to get footprints. They hung fishing line everywhere with bells and cans tied to them, hoping to trip them up and raise an alarm. They had a camera ready to go, but nothing. It was as if the Sasquatch knew what was up. Apparently they do. Meanwhile, the knocking in the woods and the crashing noises told us they were hanging around. And then it got really annoying for me. I come out one morning to find my prize rooster gone. He's in a special pen, and the only way to get to him would be to lift the pen up and scoop him out. And he was just gone. 2 days later, my other prize rooster was gone from his secure pen. Instead of declaring war, I decided to try a different approach. We didn't know much about Sasquatch, but the tree knocking was clearly their communication. So, I made a big batch of oatmeal with sugar and a big pot of dog food and left the food on the trail we were pretty sure they used. I knocked on a tree 3 times with a stick and left. For some reason, they do 3 knocks. I went out the next morning and all the food was gone, with the larger pots neatly stacked at the trailhead. After this, they left my chickens alone. About this time, neighbors began to report Sasquatch sightings. We were scattered apart from each other in the woods, and one family who loved to play loud beat music saw a young Sasquatch peeking in their windows, attracted by the music. We've all decided Sasquatch really like drum beats and rhythm. Our last summer experience with this Sasquatch family was one evening around 1 a.m. We were enjoying our clear, warm evening out on the deck and heard a Sasquatch scream/roar. It was clearly the young one, and it sounded scared. How would you know it was a young one? That's the curious part for me. How do you know? How would you know that was clearly a young one? Far in the distance, we hear the large roar of an adult. The little one responded again, and it wasn't 30 yards from our home in the woods. The large one roared again and was clearly closer. We could hear it racing through the woods along the power lines. The speed it traveled was unbelievable. The little one kept calling as it began to move further into the woods. Soon we heard them both leave together, and we didn't hear from them again until several months later when they came back to eat my blueberries and all the fruit from my pear tree. That's a pattern. We've seen several years of experiences with Sasquatch, and have learned some things about them that affirms what many here share. Of course, we're not absolutely positive about these things, but it is our assessment as of now. Number one, there are various types and dispositions. Ones living deep in the Olympic Mountains by us are dangerous. There are places the Forest Service says do not go into because of their aggression. The ones we have encountered here are more domestic. They leave our dogs alone and enjoy people watching. Another story. Number two, they are impulsive and either are really happy, really sad, or really angry. The teenage male Sasquatch are hormonal and can be jerks. The girls seem to be sweet and love babies and kids. They are empathic and pick up on emotions pretty quickly, but don't seem interested in thought the same way we are. They are just different. Number three, they are interdimensional, but may be held by some sort of guardian or keeper, as they seem to just plop into our area on schedule, spring and fall. We've seen lights and the wavy, shimmery atmospheric changes preceding their activity here. Number four, they like routines and love music. Number five, they eat vermin. We really like it when they spend a few weeks here because all the raccoons disappear. We think they eat them. The downside is they do eat the deer too. We've seen a torn carcass in the woods as if something ripped it in half. Yet they left our horses alone, except for one hormonal teen Sasquatch who would throw stuff at the horses, trying to get them to run through the fence. He'd also get goofy when he'd see my tall, beautiful daughter as she tended the horses. I'd finally accompany her with a shotgun loaded with slugs and yell at him. He would rattle the bushes, throw stuff, and make grunting noises at her. Definitely a safety threat. All these Sasquatch have since moved on. The natives here said that a terrible illness wiped out many of them. The young one who looked in the window has since grown up like my children, and she made a return visit here 3 years ago. My adult daughter next door, and I felt her heart break and heard her crying. The neighbor actually recorded it, and it is enough to make anyone cry. She was all alone, and her thought was that she lost a baby. Every time my daughter brought my younger toddler grandson out, we could feel her presence in the woods beside the house. We were actually a bit worried that she might take him. Her emotions were so palpable for us, and she was so audacious in her behavior. Again, they are very emotional creatures. There are so many Sasquatch stories in my area, it is astounding. Everyone has a story here, and most of us all nodding our heads in agreement. I hope our experiences shed a bit more light into this fascinating mystery. Be vigilant, but don't be paranoid. We didn't regard our experience in a spiritual sense, but with a more science-based approach. We are religious and spiritual, and understand there are dark spiritual forces at work, but didn't sense a threat in that arena with these particular Sasquatch. There is so much we just don't know. Thanks for taking the time to provide a place where we can share our stories and dive deeper into the experiences that are helping us all learn more about this world we share. Best, Carolyn Schuster, Port Orchard, Washington. That's one hell of a share. Wow. That's a holy cow. Now, obviously, I guarantee you, thousands of people listening to this right now are going to be going, share the recording, right? Without a doubt. So, if you want to talk to your friends, have the recording of that being, and you want to share it with everybody through me, feel free, I'll do it. What else? The natives said that a disease or illness wiped them out. How would they know that? And I would love to hear from somebody who made that statement, because that's a bold statement considering how much we don't know, right? So considering how much we don't know, how could a simple human being say, make a bold statement. Yeah, sickness or illness, excuse me, sickness or illness wiped out the majority of them around here. How? What? Where'd the bodies go? How do they kill them? You know what I mean? That's a big statement. Who told you this? And I'm not being, I'm not saying it's not true at all. It just flashes up my curiosity. I go, whoa, what? Somebody made that bold statement and said, what? I want to hear more about this. That's how my brain fires when it hears a statement like that. So, excuse me, if you have direct line of communication to one of the people who know that a group of these forest people died off from an illness or disease, I want to hear from them. I want to hear from them. I want to hear how they know. That would be a major, serious puzzle piece, don't you think? Anyways, if that can happen, we're all over it. If that can happen, we're all over it. There's more than there's been a lot of people who have similar lifelong experiences with the rural property and their families going on with these forest people, these beings, these Sasquatch, Sabe people, whatever you choose to refer to them as. There's a lot of freaking people who have ongoing experiences, and they just go with it. They don't bring CNN into their backyard. They don't start up a Facebook page about it. They just live and exist. It's kind of bizarre, don't you think? Kind of bizarre. Emails back if you would. I would absolutely appreciate you. I appreciate you for sending that in, and I would love to hear more from you, if you would. This next one's titled "Not Enough Gun." Said everybody. Hi, Steve. It's me again. Mike Gaglione. I hope I pronounced that right, Mike. I apologize if I didn't. AKA Forever Free. Listening to your March 4th, 2024 show, where you were talking about our guns will definitely mess up a Sabe. You read my story about one stomping around my cabin in Cape Vincent, New York, where I had a loaded 45-70 right next to me. I was too afraid to reach for it, and I really don't scare much. I live in the Bronx. I lived in the Bronx for 55 years, where backing down is not an option. I have thought about portals, cabin slapping, Edgar, the government cover-up. I had friends find a footprint that went nowhere on my property. I've had several slaps in my cabin, but I've never seen the perpetrator. So here's my puzzle starting to come together. Edgar lost time, and his phone pinged several countries. My friend's footprint to nowhere, the slaps. My thoughts are the disturbance caused by the opening of a portal may cause slapping sound on nearby structures. Edgar's experience would suggest a intraplanetary portal. Are they also interplanetary? Given the war lust our governments have, this would explain why they don't want to know about these beings. I think they tag some people because they're testing who can be trusted. I think the stomping when I was working on my gun was a protest, given the proximity to the porthole. Just some thoughts. Thanks again for what you do. My thoughts and prayers to you and yours. Mike Gaglione, Forever Free. Okay, Mike, appreciate it, man. And you never know. It may be. May be. The government cover-up. Yeah, we all know. I'll stop repeating myself now. What do I got here? This is too long. I should probably get my ass in gear. All right. Here we go. I was supposed to have, I think, 3 or 4 people come on here with me this week. Haven't even contacted them. I haven't looked at my phone for over a week just because I can't. It's overwhelming. I get a million, billion, trillion emails, social media messages, phone calls, phone texts, and then it's just every once in a while I get way too overwhelmed and I got to get my shit together. Had a friend of mine nearly passed away recently. I don't bring up, there's a lot of stuff I don't share publicly. I've had a lot on my plate, but it's all good. I'm getting there. So I've been up till probably, I don't know, midnight trying to get a certain project done. It's a lot. It's a lot of work, but the end result will be very enjoyable for me and an accomplishment. I guess what am I saying is I will get back to my regular communicating with the world here quite shortly. Just got a couple small more hurdles I got to get over with, and I'll be back on track. Hopefully this week I will get some more voices on here with me, speaking with me, and sharing the knowledge, questions and answers with me, and obviously share it with all you. So there you go. There you go. There's another day, another share session, right? Now I thought there's more I was supposed to share with you guys. Maybe not. I probably forgot. I got to get ripping. I got some stuff I got to get done. Here we go. Share my story at howtohunt.com. That's where you get your experience shared word for word. Okay? Or tell my story at howtohunt.com. What else? That's about it. Sarah's still working at getting her shelves cleaned off in her store, and she's going to put a bunch of this new crazy, pretty cool stuff in there. That's it. I got to get going. I will be back tomorrow, though. Be safe.